Living statues. From 1917 to 1928, 500,000 people were afflicted with a ghastly condition that could be part of the plotline of a horror film. The victims, very much alive and conscious, found themselves in inexplicably frozen states, their static bodies prisons for their minds. Encephalitis lethargica EL, aka the sleeping sickness, first appeared in Europe and quickly spread around the world, reaching epidemic levels in North America, Europe, and India by 1919. About a third of those stricken with the illness died. Of the survivors, nearly half eventually found themselves unable to physically interact with the world around them, all the while fully aware of their surroundings. Though occasionally capable of limited speech, eye motion, and even laughter, they generally appeared as living statues, totally motionless for hours, days, weeks, or years. The cause is unknown, but one theory is brain inflammation, triggered by a rare strain of streptococcus, the bacteria responsible for many sore throats each year. Science's best guess is that the bacteria mutated, provoking the immune system to attack the brain, leaving the victim helpless. None of this explains why the illness disappeared only to resurface sporadically, be it in Europe in the 1950s or in China 10 years ago, when a 12-year-old girl was hospitalized for 5 weeks with the disease. Are such occurrences the new normal, or are they signs that EL could be planning something bigger any day? A 2004 analysis of 20 patients with symptoms remarkably similar to EL concluded that whatever ailed them is still prevalent. As such, history's so-called sleeping sickness remains the stuff of nightmares. What is Area 51? Area 51 in southern Nevada is a U.S. military base, the very existence of which was unconfirmed until 2013, when the CIA was obliged to respond to a Freedom of Information Act request from 2005. Based on historical evidence, it would appear that Area 51 supports the development and testing of experimental aircraft and weapons. Public satellite images, such as those available on Google Maps, don't provide insight. Even those with security clearance to visit Area 51 are transported there from Las Vegas via an airline called Janet, whose planes are unmarked and which shrouds its windows upon descent. The intense secrecy surrounding Area 51 has sparked rumors that the government uses it to house crashed UFOs and conduct lab tests on aliens. Other theories about what Area 51 is used for include research on time travel, research on teleportation, meetings with extraterrestrials, development of a means for weather control, and activities related to a shadowy one-world government. Where these theories come from is as much a mystery as Area 51 itself. But one thing is certain: people love a good conspiracy theory. Roaming ruins. It's not unusual to find junk in Brazil's Guanabara Bay, but what Robert Marks unearthed there in 1982 was an unusual kind of foreign matter. In an underwater field the size of 3 tennis courts located 15 miles from shore lay the remains of some 200 Roman ceramic jars, a few fully intact. According to Marks, a professional treasure hunter, the jars appeared to be twin-handled amphorae that were used to transport goods, such as grains and wine, in the 3rd century. But how did they get there? The first Europeans didn't reach Brazil until 1500. The Romans, who traded primarily in Mediterranean port cities and the Middle East, had little incentive to invest in ships that could cross oceans. However, they did sail as far as India. Perhaps some untrained navigator lost his way in a storm. Or maybe mutineers steered the ship westward. We may never know, nor are we likely to uncover more evidence. Brazil closed the Bay of Jars to further research in 1983 in an effort to deter looters, it said. Marx claims the government didn't want the area explored because finding Roman-era artifacts there would mean that, contrary to Brazil's official history, the Portuguese were not the first Europeans to reach the country. And the truth? It's resting 100 feet under the sea. Do the Pollock sisters prove reincarnation? Today, 24% of Americans believe in reincarnation, Although scientists tend to poo-poo the possibility, every once in a while, an unsolved mystery comes around that is so compelling and otherwise unexplainable that it gives even scientists pause. That is what we have in the story of the Pollock sisters. In 1957, two young English sisters, Joanna Pollock, 11, and Jacqueline Pollock, 6, died in a tragic car accident. 1 year later, their mother gave birth to twins Gillian and Jennifer. When the twins were old enough to talk, they began identifying and requesting toys that had belonged to their dead sisters, pointing out landmarks only their dead sisters would have known, such as a school they'd attended. And sometimes panicking upon seeing cars idling, they reportedly shrieked on one occasion, "That car is coming to get us." After the twins turned 5, these incidents became less frequent and the girls went on to lead normal lives. Still, the story of the Pollock sisters made its way to Dr. Ian Stevenson, 1918 to 2007, a psychologist who studied reincarnation. After studying thousands of supposed cases, Dr. Stevenson wrote a book telling of 14 he believed to have been real, including that of the Pollock sisters. Where are the Sodder children? The next unsolved mystery is similar to the Pollocks. George and Jenny Sodder of West Virginia were forced to cope not only with the immeasurable loss of their children, but also with the mysterious circumstances surrounding that loss. After the Sodder home burned to the ground on the night before Christmas in 1945, 5 of the 10 Sodder children were still alive and accounted for. But what about the other 5? From all accounts, it would seem that they had vanished into thin air. Notice how we don't say vanished into smoke? That's because in the ruins of the fire, 0 physical evidence of the children could be found, which is virtually impossible from a scientific standpoint. But that wasn't all that smelled off about the events of that night. Apparently, George tried to save the children who he believed were still trapped inside by using his coal truck, which strangely was inoperable. The phone lines to the house were found to have been cut. A woman claimed to have seen all 5 missing children peering from a passing car while the fire was in progress. And a woman at a Charleston hotel who saw the children's photos in a newspaper said she had seen 4 of the 5 a week after the fire. She said in a statement, "The children were accompanied by 2 women and 2 men, all of the Italian extraction. I tried to talk to the children in a friendly manner, but the men appeared hostile and wouldn't allow it." The Sodder family theorized that the children had been kidnapped, perhaps in an attempt to extort money, perhaps to coerce George into joining the local mafia — the Sodders were Italian immigrants — or perhaps in retaliation for George's outspoken criticism of Mussolini and Italy's fascist government. From the 1950s until Jenny Sodder's death in the late 1980s, the Sodder family maintained a billboard on State Route 16 with pictures of the 5 vanished children and offering a reward for information. The last known surviving Sodder child, Sylvia, 69, still doesn't believe her siblings perished in the fire. The disappearance of Paula Jean Weldon. Paula Jean Weldon was a sophomore at Bennington College on December 1, 1946, the day she told her roommate Elizabeth Parker she was going for a long walk but failed to return. A search focused primarily on Vermont's Long Trail, a 270-mile trail that cut through Vermont to the Canadian border, where local witnesses reported having seen her. The trail yielded no clues, however, and soon, what the Bennington Banner refers to as tantalizing and unquestionably strange leads began to materialize. These include claims by a Massachusetts waitress that she'd served an agitated young woman matching Paula's description. Upon learning of this particular lead, Paula's father disappeared for 36 hours, supposedly in pursuit of the lead. But it was nevertheless a strange move that led to his becoming a prime suspect in Paula's disappearance. Soon, stories began circulating that Paula's home life was not nearly as idyllic as her parents had told the police. Apparently, Paula had not returned home for Thanksgiving the week prior, and she may have been distraught about a disagreement with her father. For his part, Paula's father posited a theory that Paula was distraught about a boy she liked, and that perhaps the boy should have been a suspect. Over the next decade, a local Bennington man twice bragged to friends that he knew where Paula's body was buried. He was unable to lead the police to any body, however, let alone Paula's, and with no evidence of a crime, no body, and no forensic clues, the case grew colder, and the theories grew stranger, including those linked to the paranormal. New England author and occult researcher Joseph Citro came up with the Bennington Triangle theory, which explained the disappearance as linked to a special energy that attracts outer space visitors who would have taken Paula with them back to their world.
If you enjoy the video, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to support us, share it to your bestie.